Hey guys, Kakarot197 again, this time with a review of the 144th scale Zaku Marina from the Double Zeta Gundam and Gundam Unicorn series. Now the box art says that this is the Double Zeta Gundam version, but yeah, it's much more like the Unicorn version. I mean, obviously, because this, well, the mold itself is kind of based off the Zaku F2. So, yeah. A line box art, great. That's a great start, isn't it? And let's get on with the colors. Now we get gray for most of the joints, bit of the hands. You get a darker gray for just the hoses. Then you have a dark blue for most of the body, and then a darkish green for the limbs, for the legs here, and that's about it for colors. All the other colors you see are stickers, and let's get on with those. Now, for starters, you get the eye camera, as usual with a Zaku. Then you get a purple one, more of a pink one here for another sensor, I guess. And you get the white ones here. All of these are separate stickers. Then, man, these orange ones are annoying. I mean, this here is one sticker, no problem, but this is one whole sticker. So somehow you gotta get it in there and then wrap it around, and that does take a lot of fiddling. Now other stickers are these white ones, and these are really poor. I mean, obviously you gotta put them on there and then fold them down, and on a round surface that's very obvious. So these are very obvious, and that's very bad. Now these two ones are actually, they do come out, and I will get into further detail on that later on, but why didn't they just make them all removable and mold them in white? Yeah, now another sticker I didn't apply was a yellow one that should go on here on this gray part. The big irony is that it actually covers up the entire gray part, so why didn't they just mold it in yellow? And that continues with this red one here. I mean, this should also have a red sticker. One for this and one for the one that's used for the action pose. So once again, why didn't they just mold that in the right color? And lastly, he also comes with the usual sticker sheet with various Xeon symbols, rank insignias, numbers, various triangles, the model number, and some more warnings. And let's get on to articulation now and get even more depressed, because the head here does not have a moving mono eye. Yep, you heard it. It's the latest Zaku release and it does not have a moving mono eye. Seriously, Bandai, what the hell were you thinking? I mean, the reason is that this part of the track here is also connected to this part of the track the mono eye is on, which obviously means that it's not going to move around. Why didn't they just give us a sticker for this and let this be the standard track that they give with all of the Zakus? But no, they decided that probably the most important feature of a Zaku was too irrelevant to give their newest Zaku. Oh boy. So yeah, on to the rest of the head. Goes a bit up, bit down, forwards and backwards somewhat, and will also turn around. Again, now the arms are actually kind of surprising because you've got this very big shoulder armor, and I wasn't really expecting a lot after I saw the head, but actually, thanks to a nice setup of joints, it almost goes up 90 degrees, which was actually quite surprising. Then, well, of course, you've got this extra joint in here, because the arm itself is kind of on a hinge, and then there's a ball joint here, which gives it a little bit of extra maneuverability. And then the ball joint itself will allow it to wiggle around, and then there's yet another hinge in here, which allows it to move forwards and backwards. So the arms actually aren't all that bad. Until you get to the elbow, which is just on one joint, it gets a bit more than 90 degrees. But that's something all of the Zakus have, so that's not really a big problem. Hand is as usual on a ball joint, and this hand is also on a bit of an angle. The other hands aren't. Now, waist articulation a very little bit, because of course these hoses here are connected to his giant backpack. Now the legs do get a bit better. Go forwards about that much, backwards like that, out like that, and then there's also an extra little joint here which allows legs to move forwards and backwards like that, and also a little hole to connect them to an action base. Now, thinking about it, I might have lied a little bit about the legs getting better, because here you might think that they can rotate, but nope. They rotate a little bit, but for some reason, well, if you watch my Zaku F2 review, you saw that this did rotate, but with the Zaku F2, they actually hollowed out this part. But here it's actually filled, so it obstructs the movement. Of course, you could also always hollow it out yourself, but straight out of the packet, no movement. Well, very little. Now the leg, the knees are on double joints, but because of this part, you get about that much. But considering the bulk of the leg, that is still pretty good. And you get some nice separation here, this. So that's quite a nifty feature. And the feet, as usual, have that crazy Zaku joint, but because of this part here, not much of that going on. So they do flop out, would go further, then bit side to side, and a bit of rotation. So that's all for articulation, and now on to accessories, and let's immediately start with the most depressing of them all. His, I think was a missile spray gun, and yeah, it sprays missiles. It's just two halves slapped together with a top on top of it, and this handle does not move. Come on! Would a moving handle really be that hard to put in there? Yeah, that's number one, and number two is this top part should be red. And to make matters worse, the top part is separate, so they could have just molded it in red along with these parts that should also be red. It's not that hard to put multiple colors on one sprue. Actually, that's Bandai's entire selling point. We have the ability to put multiple colors on one sprue, yet we decided not to do it with this kit. Thanks a lot for that. Also, this makes it, well, this kind of proves that this is the unicorn version, because the double Zeta version of this gun is much longer and also thinner, which actually looks cooler because this is like a, I don't know, a fat contraption. One good thing is it has a little peg here, and of course the hand has a hole, and the hand has no problem holding it whatsoever. I mean, it just stays in with the peg alone. So that's one good thing about it. And then you've got the open hand here, so he can kind of hold it with both hands. Yeah, to give them some props, the angle of the handle is pretty good, so he can pull off most of his poses, even though the handle doesn't move. So yeah, good thing there. Also get one extra hand, it's just a closed fist hand for the left hand, nothing really special about it. Then you also get a different antenna. Well, this is the commander antenna. See, it's fatter, and it is just a normal antenna. Now, another one is, you get this wire, and it actually has two uses. Use number one is, if I can find it, here it is. You have this tiny little thing here, and you put it on the end. There you go. And then you remove this here. I think this was called as a magnetic Harken, and it kind of serves a similar purpose as the heat rod of the Goof, or the Goof Custom, like with his grappling hook. This kind of attaches to an enemy mobile suit, and then he can electrify him so that he's kind of immobilized for a while, and then he can finish off the mobile suit with his other weapons. Now, the other use of the wire involves these two sub-rock missiles. Now, what you have to do is remove this part of his shoulder. And great. And now this is part of why I hated those stickers. Whenever you remove the shoulder armor, the sticker comes loose. So yeah, and probably if you were to paint it, it would scratch off. And instead of staying on, these two immediately detached. Great. So, you pop them out and hope that the stickers are still kind of on it. And then you take these heads and put them on the missiles. And these missiles are supposed to be white. So once again, why didn't they just mold them in white if they're separate pieces anyway? I mean, there are kids that use different colors for less spots. I mean, I've once had a Victory Gunner model from 1992, or no, 1991 I think? Or how old were they again? And it had just one yellow piece for the V-fin. That was all the yellow that was in the kit. So, you use a wire to plug it in here. And then, well, if you cut the wire in two, you can of course use both of them. But I'm gonna be like Bandai and do it the lazy way and don't cut it. Wow. And actually, for such a long wire, it holds pretty well. And then of course you could put the other one in there and make it look as if it launched them. Now, the unfortunate part is, of course, you can only do it with two of them. You can't have them like fire an entire barrage of things if you had more of these wires. So that's actually quite of a disappointment. And you cannot have him look like he just used up all of his sub-rock missiles, his submarine rockets. So yeah, it's a gimmick with a disappointment, really. Now, you also have three more accessories. You can remove his chest and replace it with a normal Zaku chest. I'm not quite sure if it means that this can be ejected and that this is underneath it, because this is pretty much just an upgraded Zaku. Now, as for the legs, you can remove this, and this time I'm actually almost 100% sure that this is just an extra part that's slapped on there, so it can be ejected for when he's like on land, to increase his mobility, because of course he wouldn't really need his underwater thruster things on land. So you can just remove him for his land combat mode. The only problem is, of course, his only melee weapon is his magnetic Harken, and his missiles are pretty quickly depleted. So, as always, the inevitable question is, do you want to buy this? Well, the retail price of 1,400 yen, and considering that this is actually the latest release and a modern kit, I would say no, because I feel that, well, this is something that would be released a few years ago. It just doesn't feel like a modern, well, like something they would release nowadays because of all the stickers they need. And it just feels kind of lazy on Bandai's part. The little things that they didn't do are just so annoying, especially like the mono eye that doesn't move. I mean, overall, it's not a bad kit. It's still a decent kit. Articulation is pretty decent, especially with the arms. That was something I really wasn't expecting. Overall, articulation is good. Accessories are acceptable. The gun was a big disappointment, but overall, it's still an okay kit. But to recommend it, definitely not. If you want a Zaku, you're way better off buying the Zaku F2. Now, that kit was a lot. The Zaku 2 is actually, the F2 is a lot better than this, in my opinion. And for 100 yen more, you do get a lot more. So, unless you really must have a Zaku Mariner, yeah, that's the only reason you should buy this. If you're just a fan of, yeah, if you're just a unicorn fan, don't bother. I actually was pretty disappointed. I was expecting more from this guy, so it's still quite unfortunate. And now for some comparisons. Here is the Drog, the Zaku, and now let's throw in the Marasai, and I think I'm about ready to storm a Federation base. So, that's all for this review, and see you at the next one.